Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakammalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Param Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Shcham Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, what a glorious story about Prachina Barhi being enlightened by Narada Muni being so patient to not only tell him the whole allegorical story of Paranjana, but then to take the time to explain it in this, one of the longest chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam. He makes a very lucid explanation to his educational story. And now we're hearing about Prachina Barhi's success. It's not that he just heard it and like that was the end of it. He heard the transcendental wisdom of Narada Muni, and then his actions demonstrated his understanding. That is, he went to Kapila Ashrama, he performed austerities and penances. He did his sadhana. A similar thing happened with Ajamil. Ajamil had that incredible encounter with the Vishnu Dutas, the Yamadutas, and he heard all sorts of incredible exchange between them. He was given his second chance, but it's not like, well, that's it. And then he went home. His actions demonstrated the extent of his realization of what he heard. And so after that exchange, he went and performed sadhana and became liberated from material existence and engaged in devotional service, of course. So that's what's being said here about Prachina Barhi. He heard everything, and because he heard in a receptive spirit, because he was graced by the devotee and by the Lord, he had realization, and his realization was demonstrated in his action. And this is what we need to do also, obviously. We're hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. We're hearing from Srila Prabhupada. Make no mistake, we're hearing from Srila Prabhupada. It might look like I'm in the little square on your screen, but actually we're associating with Srila Prabhupada in his translation and his purports, which is incredible. And I hope I won't get in the way too much. But whether or not we really understood will be demonstrated in our action. Do we engage in devotional service with our heart? Do we chant with attention? And do we share Krishna consciousness with others? That's what Prachina Barhi did. And he attained, and the evidence of that is he attained a spiritual position qualitatively equal to that of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is remarkable. And we can do that too. Have the same status, tat samyatam agat. He possessed the same status or the same form as that of the Lord. And this is really important. It's also how we understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead by becoming Krishna conscious. When we could say, awaken to our spiritual nature, our spiritual form, in devotional service. And our spiritual nature is realized in the arena of devotional service, not by some theoretical wrangling, not by some idea that, well, maybe my Siddha Swarupa, my spiritual form, is that I'm a peacock in Goloka Vrindavan. And so therefore I should start cawing like a peacock now. Apparently there was someone who, the story goes that somebody in Vrindavan was told by his guru, your Siddha Swarupa, your eternal spiritual form, is that you're a peacock. And so in his self-same human body, he would like sit in a bush and caw at people, thinking like, this is how I'm going to get it. That's not our approach to our spiritual body. We hear the transcendental knowledge of Krishna consciousness from Srila Prabhupada. We engage in devotional service, and it's in the arena of devotional service that we realize our spiritual nature. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that in the kirtan of the devotees, in the kirtan with the devotees, you'll realize what is your spiritual nature, what is your form. And then he said that you can cultivate that understanding and realization in your japa. I'm not going to speak much about my realization of that, which is little. But again, my point here is that having heard from a spiritual master, one must engage in devotional service. Not just, well, I've heard, I've received the information, like modern education works, that all you have to do is pass the test. You don't even have to go to class. I hear from these kids all the time. You don't even have to go to class. You don't have to be there. All you have to do is pass the test. That's the only thing that matters. There are some professors, of course, who will mark attendance, but that's not so common. Oftentimes these classes have 200 people in them, and the professors don't care to like check everybody's attendance. All you have to do is pass the test. Just retain the information long enough to go into that room, mark the right boxes, and then done. And then you're considered qualified. There isn't a lot of like real life testing. So sometimes we bring that same misconception to our Krishna consciousness. We think, well, I read the whole Bhagavatam. I guess I'm it now. I've done it. And our realization is demonstrated by engagement in devotional service. That's what Pratina Barhi did. He went to Kapil Ashram, engaged in the service of the Lord. And that's what Ajamil did. Of course, hearing from the spiritual master is also a devotional service. But we need to go further. We need to act. Prabhupada said this is not just for armchair philosophers, but for the transformation of character. So that's the great example that's being set here. And we should ask ourselves, am I doing that? Is what I'm hearing and reading on the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam affecting my action? Is it affecting my engagement in devotional service? Is it changing my perspective of the transcendental activities such that I realize acting for Krishna's pleasure is my total purpose? That's the transformation of character that should come about. And if that's not happening as much as you would like, well, do more. More hearing and chanting in the association of devotees. More kirtan. It's a nice thing about kirtan. It's like, even if you don't feel it, you just get into it and you will feel it. I mean, you actually worship Gaur Nitai by raising your hands in the kirtan of the devotees and saying Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. And then when you worship Gaur Nitai, then you feel so much ecstasy, Kevala and Andakanda. So there's no fake it till you make it. You just really do it and you'll be in ecstasy. So Prabhupada says here that a living entity can be liberated from the material condition at any moment, provided that he wishes to do so. That's really remarkable. That's really remarkable that we're held here by our own design. We're in a prison of our own design. Well, I don't know if I should say that. Krishna did design the material world, but we are willingly, holding on. We're attached. Can't let go. Like sometimes a child, like my little boy, Madhava, he'll play with like some ribbon or some string or something. And because kids are just like programmed to try to kill themselves, like wrap the string around his neck and around his arms or something. And he's like trying to get it off and like pulling. Can't figure out like how he's getting more entangled. He was just doing this yesterday. I was there, of course. This is why I supervise my children, so I don't let them choke themselves to death. But toddlers are just like this. In fact, someone created a video game where two people play, where one plays as a toddler in a room, in a kitchen, in a house, and they're just trying to kill themselves, like by sticking their fingers in electrical outlets or crawling into the oven. And then the other player has to play as the parent, trying to stop the child from killing themselves. It's some video game that somebody created. Obviously, a young parent created this game, but that's what it's like. So here's my boy Madhava. He's got some sort of string. He's like entangled himself in it around his neck and in his arms, and he's like pulling, trying to get it off, and crying. He doesn't realize that actually he's causing his own entanglement out of his frustration and his anxiety. He's pulling and pushing harder and harder. He's looking at me crying, what do I do? What do I do? So that's what we're like in this material world, actually. Yes, Krishna has designed this material world, but we're the one who's like wrapping around our neck and wondering what's going on, like little Madhava playing with string. And so we can be liberated whenever we wish to do so, just like little Madhi looks at me with those puppy dog eyes, tears in his eyes, and I'm eager to run over and release him from these clutches. So similarly, Krishna says, Daivihesha gunamai, mama maya daratyaya. Yes, this material energy is very difficult to overcome. It's divine. This energy of mine is divine. Duratyaya. And it's just so hard to get over it. He recognizes our struggle. He recognizes our heroism. Prabhupada says we're all heroes. But he's saying, Mam eva ye prapadyante mayamitam tarantite. If you surrender unto me, you can cross above it. You can cross beyond it. So little Madhava, he surrendered to his father. That's the inbuilt characteristic of children. Come running, come crying. And so I released him. And it's just so simple. For me, it's nothing. It just goes, whoop. And he's no longer entangled in the prison of his own design. So similarly, Krishna can just like that, if we really want it. But we're not crying to Krishna. We're not like little Madhava. Little Madhava is smarter than us. We're not running to Krishna crying, please, please, Mam eva ye prapadyante, please, I'm surrendering to you. We're not crying like little Madhi. We're thinking, no, I got it. I almost figured this out. We pull harder and it's choking us. Let's be honest. I hope I'm not challenging anybody too much, but let's be honest. They say the child is the father of man, meaning we're supposed to learn from the children. Sometimes little Madhi is smarter than me, without hesitation, without any ego, without any shame. He'll run to his father and say, help me, help me. He can't speak, help me yet, but the message is clear. In the same way, we could just call out to Krishna, even if we think our message is not clear, if we don't know exactly what to say. We just say, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And the Lord can help so much, but we don't do it. Little Madhi is teaching us what to do. Don't stay entangled. Just call out to help to our Supreme Father, Krishna. But we don't do it. Or if we do, we're like, I don't know if you ever did this. If you're really in some difficulty and you really call out to Krishna, and we're kind of like, it's an ego challenge. Maybe we're embarrassed about the thing that we're really struggling with when we call out to Krishna. And so we expect like some immediate effect, or later our material mind kicks in and we rationalize thinking, no. I may have called out to Krishna, but I can still do it. I can still take care of it all myself. We don't act like we fully surrendered to Krishna. Like Draupadi. Draupadi didn't just call out to Krishna when she was being disrobed. She acted like it. She threw her hands in the air. Hey Govinda, hey Janardana, you are the protector of your devotees, the savior of the fallen. Please help me. She threw her hands in the air. She stopped trying to fight against, what was his name? What's his name? Dushashana? She stopped trying to fight against him. She just called out, threw her hands in the air. Hey, Govinda. Hey, Gopal. So similarly, we're struggling against material nature. How do we stop fighting against it? Just fully take shelter of chanting Krishna's holy names. Just chant, chant, chant. Kirtaniya Sada Hari. I mean, when was the last time you did that? Or you just chant all day? Just like erase everything on your calendar. Today I'm just going to chant. So desperate. I used to do that. Now I'm like Grihasta, and I think Ekadashi Targapu is setting the example for all of us. Thank you so much. But I used to do in desperation, not like because I knew that I should, but only out of desperation. Now I'm a Grihasta, and I think I'm in control. I'm the man. I'm the Purusha. I'm the lord of this little castle. But there were times where just in desperation, just so struggling with material existence, I just cancel everything and just chant all day. That's how we take shelter of Krishna. And then Krishna can release us from the Daivi Yesha Gunamayi, just like little Madhava, wrapped up. I wish I could have a picture to show all of you. It's like wrapped up and tangled in some string. In desperation, just calls out to his father, and immediately I can release him. So Krishna can immediately release us also. He says, Mayamitam tarantite. It's interesting, the grammar here. The suffix anti means they, like many people. They easily cross beyond it. Indicating that it's plural. Etam also is plural, if I recall correctly. Meaning like many people have done it. Don't think that this is some really, I don't know, like really special, unique thing. Many people have done it. Krishna says, many, many persons have attained transcendental love for me. What is that? Chapter 4, text number 10. Hold on. I gotta whip out some Bhagavad Gita verses here, because there's a lot of nice Bhagavad Gita stuff going on right here. He says, Bahavo Gyana Tapasaputa Madbhava Makata. Bahavo, many, many people have done this. It's like Krishna's way to encourage us. Don't think that it's rare, like therefore I cannot do it for you. Many people have attained transcendental love for me after giving up raga, bhaya, krodha, attachment, fear, and anger. They've taken full shelter of me. Manmayamam upashrita. Bahavo. Bahavo means many people. Jnanatapasaputa madbhava magatam. They've attained transcendental love for me, and madbhava, they attained my nature. We should be really encouraged by the words of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. He's not just like delivering transcendental facts. It's real encouragement. You can do it too. Please surrender to me. Like Prachina Bharti is doing. That's why we're reading this, of course. So, in the last part of the purport, Prabhupada says that Dhira and Vira, this is what it means to be Dhira and Vira. If we're a hero, if we're courageous, you call out to Krishna. A hero isn't just someone like, well, I'm going to do it all myself so that they'll sing songs about me. No one will sing songs about your demise and material existence. No one's going to sing songs about our struggle. Everyone's thinking about their own struggle. We're a hero if we take shelter of Krishna. We're not a hero just for like finding some new way to suffer, and that's our modern, especially American disease, is we like to glorify people who struggle against material existence in new and interesting ways. And, we elevate them to some high status. I found a new way to struggle in material existence. Look at my struggle. Look at me, I'm a shooting star. A shooting star means it's burning out. That's what a shooting star is. It's entered in the atmosphere and it's going to burn up and dissolve and become nothing. But we love to just glorify that. And sometimes to great detriment to that person and to ourselves. We glorify people who are struggling, mental health issues, because they put it on display. Like this guy, Kanye West. Now he's all up in the news because he's just losing it. He's just totally losing it. His ex-wife also came out, says he got mental health issues, but people will just glorify it like anything. Oh, he's an artist. It's amazing. Just saying the most ridiculous things, losing all of his money, causing real pain and suffering to himself and to others. He should be in a hospital speaking to professionals. But our American disease that we just glorify people like that, elevate them to some high status. You struggle alone. I mean, he claims to be a Christian man. I don't know how much he's taking shelter of the Lord, but that's not a real hero. It's not a real hero, someone who's just struggling alone and making money off of it. Now we have so much social media where you can just kind of display your issues and try to get followers in exchange, such that almost it's become like a trend to have more and more issues. I won't really address that, but it's one of the many cultural phenomenons going on recently, how it's almost like trendy to have more and more mental issues. So that's not a hero, one who just struggles alone against material existence. A hero is one who takes shelter of the Lord and actually crosses over material existence. Mayamitam tarantite. That's the real hero. So Prabhupada says, if you're struggling against Maya, you're a hero. And if you understand your position, then you're dhira. We should understand our position as being dependent upon Krishna. Okay, glorious. I guess we'll go on to the next verse and purport. Unless Taraka Prabhu, you'd like to add something to what has been said thus far on that verse and purport, if you had some thoughts.
Nope.
Okay.
Well, I could think of a few things, but I don't want to hold up the process.
We're not holding it. We'd love
another verse to cover. We don't have a lot of time. My personal impression of Kanye West is that he's not really in any way mentally ill. I think he does appear to me to be a very sincere Christian. He makes a lot of mistakes, a little bumbling, but I think he's basically a sane character. That's my impression. In contrast to that, we have people who genuinely have issues. The state of Pennsylvania just elected a senator who is seriously cognitively impaired. Not only did we elect a cognitively impaired individual, an individual who can't speak coherently, nor can he understand what others are saying unless he reads it. We also elected an individual who has been dead for a month.
I didn't know.
Yes, we elected a candidate who passed away in October.
Who is that?
I don't recall his name, and I don't care to know his name, but it's a real thing. State of Pennsylvania elected to office a deceased person.
Okay.
Democrat.
Okay. I hope his family gets some payout at least. Well, the interesting thing is that you don't have to speak much to be a senator. All you have to do is tick the right box. All you have to do is say yes or no. Like 20, 30 times in a season up in Congress or in the House of Representatives, wherever you are. All you have to do is pick one of two answers. Everybody on the blue side has to pick one answer. Everybody on the red side has to pick another answer. I mean, you could train a monkey to do it. So I guess being a senator these days doesn't require a lot of intelligence, just allegiance. As far as I understand, that's how politics in America work these days. So so we have this tendency to elevate people who are struggling. So going on with text number 83, if there are no other comments. Etad adhyatma paroksham gitam devarshinagaha ya shravayed ya shinuyat salingena vimuchyate. Translation says, my dear Vidura. Again, we're talking about Pratinabhari, and we're wrapping up the story. My dear Vidura, one who hears this narration concerning the understanding of the living entity's spiritual existence, as described by the great sage Narada, or who relates it to others, will be liberated from the bodily conception of life. Haribol. Yes, everybody is hearing, and I am the fortunate one to be relating it. Of course, we've all participated in relating it. So we'll all be liberated from the bodily conception of life. Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Babu. Purport. This material creation is the spirit soul's dream. Wow. Prabhupada doesn't often indulge in such poetic language. This is very interesting. This material creation is the spirit soul's dream. Actually, all existence in the material world is a dream of Mahavishnu, as the Brahma Samhita describes. Yakaranarnava jale bhajati smayoga nidram mananta jagar andasaroma kupaha. This material world is created by the dreaming of Mahavishnu. The real factual platform is the spiritual world. But when the spirit soul wants to imitate the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is put into this dreamland of material creation. Excuse me. Caught the virus that was going around. I'm already on the downswing though. Let me read that again. This material world is created by the dreaming of Mahavishnu. The real factual platform is the spiritual world. But when the spirit soul wants to imitate the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is put into this dreamland of material creation. After being in contact with the material modes of nature, the living entity develops the subtle and gross bodies. When the living entity is fortunate enough to associate with Sri Narada Mahamuni or his servants, he is liberated from this dreamland of material creation and the bodily conception of life. Yes. So we're in the dreamland of Mahavishnu. Just as in a dream, we imagine ourselves to be some character, the center of the universe. We imagine ourselves to be something or someone else. We imagine scenarios that we desire or that we're afraid of. Similarly, the soul is just dreaming this material existence. It's very liberal of Srila Prabhupada to put it in this way. Of course, the dream analogy can be misinterpreted a lot, which is why I think Prabhupada doesn't often refer to it in this way, because a dream is not real. Our material existence, our sojourn in material existence. Wow, bodies are gross, huh? Our sojourn in material existence is real, it's factual, but it's temporary. So its realness is relative to the spiritual existence, which is eternal. Just like there's rain yesterday, so much rain in the night, and that's real. There's no doubt about it. And it's glorious, especially if you live on a farm. If you're out here in State College, it's not as glorious because I've got a little bit of foundation issues in my basement, and there's no doubt that it's leaking into my basement right now, and I got to go deal with that. So there's real water, but now the clouds will be gone in just a few hours. So it's temporary. So similarly, our material existence is factual, but very temporary. So we should keep it in perspective. We should keep all of our material existence in perspective. And in that way, not take it too seriously. Not to get too caught up on all the stuff that's happening, this thing, that thing. This person said this, or that person didn't say that, or I wanted this and I didn't get it. It's like, okay. But you know what? Like the clouds in the sky that sometimes rain and sometimes look beautiful, they just pass. They'll blow away. And we just have to tolerate it without being disturbed. That's what we're supposed to do. Just like we tolerate the weather, we got to tolerate the happiness and the stress of this material world. Matra sparshas tukonteya situshna sukha dukkata agamapaino nityas tam satikshas vabharata. It's all just based on your sense perception. Now, my eyes just so happen to see this thing, by chance, and so I make a big deal out of it. My skin happened to feel a little cold. Ooh, it's the end of the world. But it's just your senses, and it'll pass. Sita Ushna, hot and cold, Sukha and Dukkha, happiness and distress, just comes and goes. Like these seasons are always changing. And sometimes the seasons are unexpected, but still it's going to pass. Like we have an unusually warm winter. It's halfway through November and it was almost 70 degrees last night. Maybe this global warming thing is happening. Who knows? And so you can be upset about that. You know, usually we're upset when it's cold. And you know who's upset that it's warm? My daughter Radha. She wants there to be snow. She loves the snow. We got her a new sled. She's all excited. She's been waiting for the snow. You know, this time last year, there was all sorts of snow all over the ground. But now she's upset. And she says every day, Papa, when is the snow coming? Will there be snow tomorrow? Then I can play in the snow. So some people are upset when it is snowing. Some people are upset when it's not snowing. It's all just matra sparshas. It's just based on your senses. If you have the senses of a 5-year-old girl, you're upset that it's not snowing. If you have the senses of an adult that's got to drive an hour to work, you're upset that it is snowing. It's all just so relative. It's all just so relative. But we get all caught up in it, you know? We should focus on what is the absolute sense gratification. What is the absolute sense gratification? Krishna's sense gratification. And that's really what's being implied in that last verse especially. Sarvopadi vinir muktam tat parat vena nirmalam hrishikena hrishikesha sevanam bhakti ruchate. Prachinabhara, he's given up his bodily conception of life. Sarva upadi vinir muktam. Upadi. We have all these different conceptions. I am a 36-year-old man. And so I feel this way about snow, and I feel a different way about rain because it leaks into my basement, and I feel some other way about this other weather. Just calculating in terms of matra sparshas, my sense gratification. But when we can sarva upadi vinir muktam, just give up all these different conceptions of the body, then we can focus on the real sense gratification. And we can focus on the real sense gratification, Krishna's sense gratification. Hrishikena hrishikesha sevanam bhaktir uchate, that is bhakti. But if we're so obsessed with our matra sparshas and our sita and ushna and our sukha and our dukkha, how can you focus on Krishna's sense gratification? If we're just thinking, now my senses feel this, and now my senses feel that, and then my senses will feel this, and I have to make plans for my senses to feel that. Ooh. God, it just goes on and on and on. So bhakti means hrishikesha, hrishikena, hrishikesha sevanam, bhakti uchate. That means to focus on Krishna's senses. By giving up all of our upadi, all of our different conceptions, thinking I'm a 36-year-old man, and I am aligned with one particular political party or this particular political party, or I'm aligned with this ethnic identity or this national mission or whatever. All these upadis. Sarva upadi vinir muktam. That's what Prachinabhara did. He gave up all of it. We have to recognize we're just kind of dreaming these different things. They have some factual existence, but they're just so temporary. Just like this rain will pass. It's just so temporary. So, if we are fortunate enough to associate with Sri Narada Mahamuni or his servants, then we are liberated from the dreamland of material creation and the bodily conception of life. But do we want to be liberated from the dreamland? It's like when a kid is at Disneyland. I don't know if you've all been to Disneyland. I haven't been there for a long, long time. But Disneyland is just like, I always think of Disneyland as a good example, an analogous example of how Krishna has created the material world for us to just get fully absorbed and infatuated. You know, Disneyland or Disney World is designed so that you're just like constantly distracted from the fact that they're charging you like $15 for some French fries for 10 cents worth of potatoes. It's so expensive to go to Disneyland now. From what I understand, it's like $120 or something for a day. They just really milk it, take all your money out. And you just get in there and you're just like fully absorbed in this whole world that's created, this illusory world. Wow, look at this. And wow, look at that. And every single thing is designed down to the last rock and shrub and bush and tree. Everything is just engineered for maximum illusion. So Krishna has expertly designed this world like that, so that we can feel like it's all me, my upadi, my particular bodily existence that I'm in right now is so significant, so important. Anyway, and then you get tired of it. You cannot stay at Disneyland. The parents want to leave after some time, and the kids are crying because even though they want to enjoy, actually their little bodies are getting tired. They get exhausted. They start getting sick. All sorts of disease spreads at Disneyland. Or you eat some junk and you run around, you start getting sick. So the kids start crying. You just go to Disneyland and see people who are fresh in the door, and the families with young kids who are leaving, and see the contrast. So we need to get to that point where we're just totally exhausted of this dreamland. And so we surrender to Krishna. Mameva ye prapadyante. And then in a moment, we can leave. We can be fully absorbed in Krishna's devotional service. Anyway, I should wrap up. That's what's being described in the story of Prachina Barhi. It should be very real for us. We're meant to do the exact same thing. We're not different from Prachina Barhi. We're not different. We're all on the same page here. We've heard from the Mahamuni, Srila Prabhupada, just as he's heard from Narada Muni. Narada Muni gave his purport, just as Srila Prabhupada has given us purports. Now we are meant to engage in devotional service. Our realization should be tested by actual engagement in devotional service and Sankirtan. Then we're liberated from material existence. So when we read about these personalities of Srimad Bhagavatam, we shouldn't think, oh, they're very special. I can't be like him. He's something really remarkable and special. No, we're supposed to be exactly like him. Exactly like Prachina Barhi. That's why we're reading about it. Sometimes we make these excuses. Oh, I cannot be like Prahlad. Why would we read about Prahlad if we're not supposed to follow his example? Any of you ever heard those excuses when you're preaching to somebody? I used to hear it all the time. You're giving a Bhagavatam class or something. Someone says, oh, yes, but that was Prahlad Maharaj. Or that was Dhruva Maharaj. I can't be, I'm not like him. He's special. What is the point of reading about these persons if you're not supposed to do exactly like them? Why else would we read about it? So we're meant to be exactly like Prachina Barhi. We're meant to follow his example exactly. And we're very similar to him. We've heard from the Mahamuni. Our Mahamuni is Srila Prabhupada. He's given us our purports patiently, very patiently. Now we're meant to engage in devotional service in the ashram. We might not go to Kapil ashram, but you can be at the ashram of Gitanagari. And in this way, become fully Krishna conscious. All right, I'll finish there and ask if there's any other comments or questions on these points. I know this is all really Krishna Consciousness 101, but I've tried to share some more insight. So I hope that at least you're feeling a refreshed perspective on bhakti basics. Let's see if there's anything in the chat. Why can't I see the chat box here?
Krishna Consciousness 101 is always good. Doesn't get old. It's not really, there's no redundancy in the hearing and chanting of Krishna Katha. It's really, it's always good. It's ever fresh. And the more you hear, the more you repeat, the more understanding develops and expands. So I've noticed over the years that a lot of devotees, particularly when giving class, they want to try to present something that is new and novel, something that devotees haven't heard before. They try to somehow find something esoteric, or they want to present something new, and that's actually not the process of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. It's just simply repeating the same message again and again, and we need to hear it again and again because it doesn't sink in very well in many cases. We need to hear repeatedly the same messages. It's never old. Krishna's words are not old. Some devotees might be reluctant to repeat Bhagavad Gita, certain verses of Bhagavad Gita. Everyone knows, everyone's heard so many times, but it doesn't become old. We need to hear those messages again and again. They need to be repeated again and again. You know, we live at Gita Nagari, which that place where the Bhagavad Gita is spoken, repeated. Many may not be aware of this. There was a time, and I'll tell you a little bit about the history. In the beginning, there's a peculiar history. There was a notion early, even prior to the acquisition of Gita Nagari, we were thinking of calling Gita Nagari New Varshana. But the farm was generally referred to as just the New York farm. And then when Srila Prabhupada visited here, he was walking in a particular pasture, and he looked around and he stopped the discussion and he said, "This place looks just like the place where Srimati Radharani was found by King Vrishabhanu." And so he named Gita Nagari New Varshana. So one might ask, well, then why are we referring it to Gita Nagari, or Srila Prabhupada named it New Varshana? And the reason is that later on, Srila Prabhupada changed the name to Gita Nagari.
Why not? He can do anything.
So there was a time when the entire farm, everywhere you went on the farm, we had these wooden plaques that stood on two posts, and they were situated everywhere, all over the entire farm. All the verses of Bhagavad Gita were everywhere. Everywhere you went, when you went down any road or any pathway, even up on the ridge in the woods, the verses of Bhagavad Gita were painted on the trees. There was Bhagavad Gita everywhere. You couldn't go anywhere without finding verses of Bhagavad Gita. The entire farm was plastered in Bhagavad Gita. At some point or other, those plaques became weathered and were first they were taken down to be restored, and that work wasn't done, and eventually they just fell into such disrepair they were discarded, which is unfortunate. And the paint gradually wore off the trees. You might still find some paint on some of the trees, but Gita Nagari used to be full of Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah. I don't know if you know, Prabhu, that there is a New Varshana ISKCON property. It's in
yes, right.
It's in Auckland.
That came later.
Yeah. That's where I came along first, New Varshana. Aptly named, Varshana means the place of rain, and it rains a lot in that particular area. Thank you for that history. I didn't know that Prabhupada had some transcendental vision of Srimati Radharani's discovery place or birthplace when first coming to this property. It's wonderful. Thank you. Hare Krishna. So I guess we'll finish there unless there's other, excuse me. I'm sorry, I've got this frog in my throat. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in and for allowing me an opportunity to speak on this glorious Srimad Bhagavatam. So grateful to Srila Prabhupada that he would give us not just the Bhagavatam, but also some opportunity to speak about Bhagavatam. Oh,
I just remembered that I wanted to say also that if you study Srila Prabhupada's preaching, and I came to this understanding after a protracted period of illness, during which time I was listening to Srila Prabhupada's lectures all day, every day. And what I gradually saw, and Srila Prabhupada described this himself. Srila Prabhupada speaks in his preaching, practically everything that he preaches is from Bhagavad Gita. Everything is from Bhagavad Gita, and he would go on at length about how every question can be answered by Bhagavad Gita. If you carefully study the verses of Bhagavad Gita, you'll find that everything is there. And so all of his preaching was all guided by Bhagavad Gita. Even if he wasn't specifically quoting Bhagavad Gita, the thrust of his effort was inspired and guided by Bhagavad Gita. He did everything on the basis of Bhagavad Gita. It was a very, very big thing for him. Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada was all about Bhagavad Gita. He gave us Srimad Bhagavatam, and he quotes all kinds of verses from all over, but there is nothing that he quotes more than Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, he repeats again and again and again and again and again, never old. So you can just become a scholar of Bhagavad Gita. You've accomplished something very substantial, and you can do extraordinary preaching just simply on the basis of Bhagavad Gita. There's actually nothing else required. Everything else is extra, but everything is in Bhagavad Gita.
Yes, thank you for reminding us of Prabhupada's example. Nitya Nutana means ever fresh, ever new. And Srila Prabhupada demonstrated that. He seemed to never get tired of reminding us that we're not the body. We get a little tired of hearing it. But Prabhupada never seemed to get tired of reminding everyone, you're not the body. So such a great example. Okay, so we'll finish here. I don't know if there's still darshan. Oh yeah, we should have darshan of the Lord, which is incredible. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bo.